For 22 years, she believed her son had vanished without a trace. No witnesses, no suspects, no goodbye. Just a single moment. And then silence. But one morning, while flipping through an old photo album, she saw something she'd never noticed before. A reflection, a face, in the car window, right behind her son, and that's when everything changed. What she uncovered next would not only rewrite the past, but reveal a truth buried by the people she... Before we begin, take a breath. Because some stories don't just stay with you, they become a part of you, and this one will never leave you the same. The sky in Asheville had always looked different in October, as if the trees were holding their breath, as if the wind remembered something everyone else tried to forget. The rusted mailbox in front of 118 Maple Ridge Drive creaked as Laura Beckett reached in with her gloved hand. Autumn had wrapped the neighborhood in a curtain of silence. No children shouting. No lawnmowers humming, just the sound of dry leaves brushing against concrete like whispers between ghosts. She held the bundle of envelopes in one hand, but her eyes weren't on the mail. They were fixed on the large oak tree across the street, the same one that stood over her son's 4th birthday party 22 years ago. The same one that had watched him vanish. Daniel Beckett, last seen October 16, 2003. No body, no trace, no scream. Just a child-sized silence that swallowed the family whole. Laura stepped back inside, closing the heavy wooden door behind her. A shriek. She still refused to oil the hinges. That sound had once warned her when Daniel wandered the hallway at night. Inside, the house hadn't changed much. Neither Havia Ila. Same blue wallpaper in the hallway, same frames along the stairwell, portraits of smiles before the... Her daughter Emma, now 27, had asked her to move on. But how could someone move on from a disappearance? She placed the mail on the kitchen table. One envelope fluttered to the floor. A gas bill. She didn't care. Her fingers itched instead for something she hadn't touched in months. She walked to the hallway closet, reaching above the shelves until her hand met the dust-covered photo box. Brown leather, worn edges, a thin crack along the spine from years of opening and closing. She carried it back to the kitchen like an offering to a shrine. The house smelled like cinnamon, left over from a candle burning the night before, but it couldn't mask the scent of the past, of dust and old paper and something else. Grief, maybe. Laura sat down. The chair creaked under her, protesting like her knees. She flipped open the lid. Inside, photos organized by year, some barely holding together. Others, crisp like new memories, never lived. And then she saw it. The photo. The one taken just 2 hours before Daniel vanished. It was a candid picture. Her daughter Emma grinning with missing teeth, Daniel clutching a red balloon, their father behind them mid-laugh. It had been taken from the side, near the family's old Chevy Blazer. Her heart squeezed. She didn't look at the children first. She didn't even look at her husband. She stared at the window of the car behind them. There was something there. She brought the photo closer. The plastic coating had bubbled slightly over the years, but it wasn't that. No, there was a reflection. Just behind Daniel, in the Chevy's back window, a face, barely visible but unmistakable. A man, watching, and not someone from the party. Her breath caught. She turned the photo toward the kitchen light. The details became clearer. A man in a flannel shirt, dark hair, half his face in shadow, staring directly at Daniel. She had never seen it before, or had she just never let herself see it? The next sound was the scraping of the chair against the tile. Laura stood, heart pounding, fingers trembling. She walked toward the study. The lights flickered slightly. Asheville's old grid was never reliable. On the wall was the corkboard of Daniel's life, a collage of flyers, newspaper clippings, and school drawings frozen in time. She pinned the photo to the top, right next to his missing persons report. And then she did something she hadn't done in 15 years. She called James Doyle. The man who once said, "Mrs. Beckett, there are no more leads. Sometimes no answer is the only answer we get." But Laura didn't believe that. Not now. Not after what she just saw. Elsewhere in Asheville, Detective Doyle sat on his back porch, smoking a cigarette he'd sworn to give up. The sound of her voice froze him, not because he didn't remember, but because he never forgot. "James," she said, "I think I missed something." He didn't ask who she was. He didn't ask what. He just said, "I'll be there in the morning." That night, Laura didn't sleep. She sat at the kitchen table, staring at the photo, flipping it back and forth under the lamplight. The hum of the refrigerator, the occasional crack of wood settling, and the ticking clock were the only sounds. But at 2:41 a.m., another sound joined them. A soft knock at the front door. She froze. No one ever came this late. She opened the door slowly. No one, just the wind, and an envelope, cream-colored, no return address, her name written in block letters. Inside, a single note. "Stop digging. Let the dead stay buried." Her knees buckled. She fell back against the doorframe, hands trembling. The note was unsigned. No fingerprints, no smudges, just the warning. 22 years of silence. And suddenly, someone was watching. Laura Beckett didn't like mirrors anymore. She avoided the one above the fireplace and the long one in the hallway. The only one she couldn't cover had a crack running diagonally across it, like a scar that split her reflection into before and after. Before 2003, she had been vibrant. She taught second grade. She laughed easily. She made the best peach cobbler in the neighborhood. After, she just existed. Moved from day to day like a ghost inside the home she refused to leave. Each morning was the same. She made a single cup of coffee in her old drip machine, added exactly 2 spoonfuls of sugar, and sat in the sunroom. The room faced the street and caught the first light of day, her favorite hour, when the silence hadn't yet been disturbed by lawnmowers or barking dogs. There was peace in the repetition, but also something tragic. 22 years ago, that same sunroom had been Daniel's favorite place. He'd press his small hands against the glass, trying to catch the dust motes in the morning light. He'd sing songs to birds and wave at passing cars. His voice still echoed there, faint and intangible, like static on a forgotten radio station. Laura had kept everything from his childhood: the sippy cup with bite marks, the red rubber boots he refused to take off, the drawing of a stick family where he'd drawn himself holding a balloon. And that balloon, the same one from the photo, had been red, always red. In her mind, Daniel was still 4. His features never aged. He was forever caught in the amber of memory. Emma, on the other hand, had grown up. She had become a nurse, lived 2 towns away. She visited twice a month and stayed for exactly 2 hours, never more. Emma loved her mother, but resented the weight of a ghost between them. "You never came back to life, Mom," she'd said once, tears in her voice. "You buried yourself with him." Laura hadn't answered. What could she say? Emma had seen things no 5-year-old should. Her baby brother vanishing during a family outing. The way her father slowly disintegrated afterward, drinking, disappearing for days, coming home angry or silent, and eventually just not coming home at all. He died in 2011, a car accident, alone. Emma handled the arrangements. Laura didn't attend the funeral. "I'd already buried him years ago," she told the mirror that night. The day after discovering the reflection in the photograph, Laura sat on the edge of her bed holding a blue sweater that had once belonged to Daniel. It was soft and faded. The sleeves still bore the faint scent of baby shampoo, or maybe she just imagined it. She whispered to it sometimes, just in case. The doorbell rang at 8:17 a.m. She already knew who it was. James Doyle stood on the porch wearing the same jacket he had worn the day he told her they were ending the search. Time had carved deeper lines into his face, and his hair was now almost completely white. But the weight he carried looked the same. Regret ages a man more than years ever could. He didn't speak at first, just nodded. She opened the door wider. Inside, he moved slowly. His eyes scanned the house like it was evidence, a room preserved in amber. He looked at the wall of Daniel's things and winced. "You kept it all," he said softly. "Of course I did." She handed him the photo. He stared at it for a long time. "Jesus Christ." "You see it too?" James nodded. "That's not a party guest, and I don't remember this angle. Who took this?" "I don't know. It was in a batch given to us after the search. Most people were dropping off pictures, hoping something would help." James shook his head. "I must have missed it." "No," she said, voice steady. "We all did." They sat in the kitchen. Laura poured him coffee. The mug had a chipped handle. It used to be Daniel's favorite. It had a cartoon frog on it. James sipped and stared at nothing. "I still think about him." "Some cases don't leave you, and yours never stop talking." "Talking?" He nodded. "Every year, someone reports a sighting, a boy that looks like him, a man asking about Asheville, but nothing stuck." He'd reached into his coat and pulled out a folded paper. "I never stopped either." It was a list of names, anonymous tips, letters mailed in over the years. One caught her eye. 2008. Tip from Guillizy said she saw a boy matching Daniel's description near a rural property in Black Mountain. Laura's hands trembled. "GL is your mother's initials," James said carefully. Laura blinked. "She never told me that." Grace Lyman had died in 2015, complications after a stroke. Her relationship with Laura had always been strained. She was strict, traditional, emotionally distant. But she'd loved Daniel deeply, or so Laura thought. James leaned forward. "Do you know if she kept journals?" "She did, hundreds. But after she passed, I couldn't bring myself to read them. They're boxed in the attic." That night, Laura climbed into the attic for the first time in years. The air was thick with insulation dust and the scent of mothballs. The rafters groaned as she moved. She found the box marked Grace Journals and pulled it down with shaking hands. Inside were dozens of notebooks, mostly faded black and navy blue covers, all dated in her mother's precise Catholic school handwriting. She opened one at random, October 19th, 2003, 3 days after Daniel vanished. "She won't listen. Laura won't hear it. But I know what I saw, that man near the car watching. Why didn't I say something that day? God forgive me. If I had spoken—" Laura dropped the book. The silence of the attic felt alive now. June 1982. Laura sleepwalked again last night. Went straight out the front door, 3 years old, eyes open, but not there. I followed her down the road in my robe, calling her name. She didn't hear me, just kept walking until I grabbed her. She screamed like I'd hurt her. More entries followed, patterns, warnings, things Laura had no memory of. The journals painted a chilling portrait of childhood incidents never spoken aloud. And the fact that her mother had written to the police tip line anonymously added another crack to the mirror. Laura wasn't sure what scared her more, that someone outside had taken Daniel, or that someone inside the family had let it happen. She didn't sleep that night either. Instead, she sat in the sunroom, journal on her lap, a blanket over her legs. And the photo, pinned to the board, stared back at her. The figure in the window, the red balloon, the crack in her own memory. At dawn, Emma arrived unexpectedly. "Why didn't you tell me about the photo?" she asked, voice tight with emotion. Laura looked up. "James? He called me. Said you're chasing ghosts again." Laura opened the journal and handed it to her daughter. Emma read in silence. Her face fell. "This isn't real, she said. She was sick, Mom. She was right, Laura whispered. She saw something, so did I. Emma shook her head. And what? Now you think Daniel was taken by someone we knew? Laura didn't answer, because she already did. She didn't know why she went into the basement that morning. Maybe it was the dream. Or maybe the dream was never a dream at all. Laura stood at the top of the basement stairs, holding a flashlight. The bulb overhead hadn't worked in years. The pull cord swung gently, even though no one had touched it. She took the first step. Dust danced in the flashlight's beam. The air was colder down there, and the concrete floor seemed to breathe with its own rhythm, as if the house had a memory, and it was waking up. Halfway down, she stopped. There was a box sitting at the bottom of the steps, one she didn't remember putting there. It was an old toy box, navy blue, with a red lid. Daniel's name stenciled in yellow on the side. She knelt beside it. Inside, a stack of cassette tapes, labeled with childish handwriting. Most were from 2002 and 2003. A few simply read, Dad Workbench, or Daniel Part. Or Talking. She took them upstairs. She still had a cassette player, kept it in the attic for Christmas music. Emma had once tried to throw it out. She placed the first tape inside. Click, hiss, static, then a voice, her husband, laughing. All right, buddy, tell me about the monster truck again. Daniel's voice, young, bright, barely comprehensible, answered with joy. Bigger than the house, and it goes vroom. Laura pressed a hand. Tears welled up. A different tone, her husband again. If you're hearing this, I keep seeing that guy near the pool, with the binoculars. You said I was imagining it, Laura. Tape ends. She froze. Laura rewound the tape. Listen. The name of the school. A date. A voice in the background or the TV, or someone else? She began playing the other tapes. Hours passed. The house dimmed as evening came. James Doyle had texted twice. Emma had called once. Laura didn't answer. On the fifth tape, she found something strange. Daniel, laughing, then suddenly whispering. Tape. Who's back, honey? And Daniel, the man in the tree. Laura hit stop. She went outside that night with a flash. The oak tree still stood across the street. Bare branches reached out like arms. The wind moved through them gently, like a lullaby gone wrong. She crossed the road. Nothing at first, just dry grass, a few bottle caps and pieces of plastic. But then she saw it, a carving, on the back side of the tree hidden from the street. Faded, but still legible. DB, 2003. She ran her fingers over it. A squirrel darted past, making her jump. The moon was high now. And her heart pounded with something she hadn't felt in years, hope or fear. The next day, James came by. They sat in the sunroom. Laura showed him the tapes. He listened quietly. That wasn't in the evidence, he said. I know. He held one up. Did your husband ever talk to you about someone watching the kids? No. He barely talked at all. After. James exhaled slowly. I'm going to Black Mountain. Laura blinked. Why? That tip from your mother. The rural property. I have a friend in the sheriff's office there. If there's a cabin matching that description, maybe it's something. I'm coming. He looked at her. Laura, I am coming. The drive took an hour. Winding mountain roads, trees still shedding their leaves, the sky gray with unshed rain. They arrived at a trailhead with a rusted sign. Private property, no trespassing. James glanced at Laura. You good? She nodded. They walked in silence. After 20 minutes, the cabin came into view. Hidden behind trees, windows boarded, roof half collapsed, James stepped forward, then froze. There was a rope swing in the yard, old, frayed, hanging from a low branch, and near it, something red. Laura moved closer. A child's shoe, small, faded. She picked it up. The initials inside, DB. They called the authorities. The area was searched. Drones, dogs, nothing conclusive, no body, no blood, no recent activity. But then, near the fireplace, a drawing was found, tucked into a crevice in the wood. A stick-figure family, 4 people, one circled in red crayon, and written beside it, "Not real, not Mom." Laura stared at it for a long time. Back in Asheville, she couldn't sleep. Again. She went to the garage, opened the Chevy Blazer, sat in the back seat, just like in the photo. She looked at the window, the same angle, the same reflection. She realized the reflection in the photo didn't come from the tree. It came from inside the garage, a face in the shadows. And then she remembered something. That day her mother had gone missing for over an hour, said she was taking a walk. But the woods behind the house had never been searched. The next morning she went out back, behind the fence, into the trees. Birds scattered as she walked. The ground was soft with rot. 50 yards in, she saw something, a broken ceramic frog, like the one on Daniel's mug, buried halfway in the dirt. She dug with her hands. Underneath, a rusted metal box, locked. She ran back for tools, opened it. Inside, more drawings, more notes, more tapes, and one photo she had never seen before. Daniel, looking scared, sitting in a small room. Behind him, a calendar. November 2004, a full year after he vanished. They took the photo to the lab. The date printed at the bottom, November 4, was real. The ink was authentic, the paper age-matched. The calendar in the background aligned with the year. James stared at it with disbelief. "How did this get buried in your backyard?" Laura didn't answer. She couldn't. Because the box wasn't new. It had rust, mold. The drawings inside weren't only Daniel's. Some were signed with initials, S.L. Grace Lyman's handwriting. She'd kept it all hidden and never said a word. James sent the tapes to an audio specialist he trusted from his time on the force. A woman named Lucia Klein, known for restoring evidence from cold cases. She called within 2 days. "There's a voice on tape number 7, she said, and not the child. A man's voice, whispering, faint, but audible. He says a name, Tom." Laura dropped the phone. Tom Weaver, their old neighbor, a handyman, friend of her husband. Used to fix things around the house when they couldn't afford professionals. He moved away shortly after Daniel vanished, said the press was too much. Laura hadn't seen him in over a decade. James tracked him down in a nearby county. He lived in a trailer behind a gas station he managed. No wife, no kids. They didn't call ahead. Tom opened the door, blinking against the sun. "Well, shit," he said, smiling nervously. "Thought you were dead, James." James didn't smile. "We need to talk." Tom hesitated, then nodded. Inside, the trailer reeked of old smoke and oil. NASCAR posters still hung on the wall. A dog barked from behind a locked door. James showed him the photo of Daniel in the small room. Tom's face changed. Laura watched closely. He didn't blink. Then, "That's not real." James didn't say anything. Laura stepped forward. "Where were you in November 2004? Tom's eyes narrowed. "I was working. I moved here in August that year." "Why is your name on the tape?" James asked. "Look, Tom scratched his head. "Your husband and we had a falling out. He thought I was too close to Daniel." Silence. Too close. "What does that mean?" Laura's voice trembled. "Nothing weird," Tom snapped. "I mean, he liked me. The kid liked me, that's all. I was around, maybe too much. And your husband got paranoid." Back in the car, Laura was shaking. "Do you believe him?" she asked. James stared at the steering wheel. "I don't know yet." That night, Laura went back to her garage. She opened a drawer in her husband's old tool bench. Inside, a dusty mini-cassette recorder. She almost didn't notice the tape inside. It had no label. She pressed play. A conversation, muffled. 2 voices, her husband and someone else. Male. The voice said, "She can't know, you understand me? If she finds out, everything breaks." Her husband replied, "I just want my son back, just bring him to me." The tape clicked. Laura sat in the dark for a long time. The next morning, Emma came by. She'd seen news reports of renewed activity at the Black Mountain property. A journalist had leaked information. "Mom, they're saying you found a picture of Daniel alive." Laura nodded. Emma's eyes welled up. "Why didn't you tell me?" "I didn't want to give you hope if it was nothing." Emma pulled out her phone. "There's more." She showed her an article from 2003, a blog post, written by a now-defunct local website. The headline, "Man claims to have seen missing child entering red van." The article mentioned a Chevy Blazer, but also a second vehicle parked down the road, unidentified, uninvestigated. The post was written by a local blogger named Marie Driscoll, still alive. They visited her that same afternoon. Marie, now in her 60s, lived in a duplex cluttered with books and cats. She wore thick glasses and spoke with a soft rasp. "Yes, I wrote that," she said. "But no one took me seriously. I wasn't press, just a nosy neighbor." James pulled out the photo. "Recognize him?" Marie leaned in. Her eyes widened. "That's the man from the van." Laura's stomach dropped. "You're sure?" "I remember the jawline. He stood next to that van for 10 minutes. Then the kid walked toward him. No one else saw it. You were all eating cake." Laura began to cry. Marie's voice softened. "I told the police. No one followed up. They said my timeline didn't match. But I know what I saw." They left with new fire in their hearts. But that night, Laura received a letter. No envelope. Just slid under her door. Ask yourself why he never told you everything. Ask what he was doing in those missing days. You're looking in the wrong direction. The note was unsigned, but it wasn't typed this time. It was in her husband's handwriting. James helped her search the garage more thoroughly. Behind a false panel in the workbench, they found an envelope sealed with electrical tape. Inside, a Polaroid. Daniel. In the same room as before, different angle, holding a stuffed animal, one eye bruised, and a note written in shaky pen. "They're watching. Don't trust the cops. Don't trust Tom. I only wanted to keep him safe. I'm sorry." Signed, Mark Beckett, her husband. Laura collapsed. The next morning, James Doyle was already waiting on Laura's porch with a coffee in each hand. He didn't say good morning. He didn't have to. He handed her the cup and said, "The handwriting on the note is confirmed. It's Mark's." Laura sat down on the steps. A long silence. James cleared his throat. "I need you to see something else, something that didn't make it into the..." He pulled out a thin envelope. Inside, a copy of a signed confession, dated October 23rd, 2003, 1 week after Daniel. Mark Beckett's signature. But the confession wasn't about kidnapping. It was about neglect. "I left him in the car for a few minutes. I know I shouldn't have. I just stepped away to get something from the old shed. When I came back, he was gone. Door open. No one around. I thought I saw someone near the woods. I didn't call the police right away. I panicked. I cleaned the car. I lied." Laura felt the ground shift under her. "He never told me." James nodded. "They never charged him. Not enough evidence." "But this was buried in the file. Why would he hide that from me for 22 years? "Maybe because he didn't lose Daniel that day." They drove back to the trail in Black Mountain, this time with permission. They brought Lucia, the audio expert, and 2 local deputies. Inside the cabin, they found something beneath a floorboard in what had once been a bedroom, a metal tag from a children's backpack, and a note stuffed in a mason jar, rolled tight like a message in a bottle. Written in red marker, "My name is Daniel. I am not allowed outside. They say my mom is dangerous. I don't believe them. I think she's looking for me. Please, help." Laura collapsed into James's arms. Lucia crouched down and held the note to the light. This was written by a child. And then she whispered, "He was alive." The investigation shifted. Suddenly, local news was involved again. The cabin was closed off. Forensics, dogs, ground-penetrating radar, but no body, just signs of prolonged occupancy, claw marks on a wooden door, drawings hidden under wallpaper, tiny items stored in the crawl space. And then the twist no one expected. At the local archive, James requested school records from the mid-2000s. One name caught his eye, Samuel Lyman, a boy enrolled in 2005, age 6, no birth certificate, no medical history before enrollment, guardian listed, G. Lyman. Laura stared at the printout. "That's my mother." James's voice was a whisper. "I think Daniel was raised under another name, by Grace, for years." They drove straight to the cemetery. Grace's grave was simple, marble, small stone angel atop it. But it wasn't the grave they cared about. It was what was buried with her. With a court order, they exhumarum a small wooden box hidden in the false base of the tombstone. Grace had written a final letter inside. Laura opened it with trembling hands. "To my daughter, if you ever find this. I took him. I couldn't let you raise him the same way I raised you. I saw the darkness growing in your husband. I saw the way Daniel looked at him. I heard things. I saw bruises. You wouldn't believe me. So I lied. I told him he'd be safer far away from you. I paid a man to take him. I watched him go. I watched him cry, but I buried the truth with me, but if you're reading this, maybe there's still time to find him. G." Laura fell to her knees. Daniel hadn't been kidnapped by a stranger. He had been taken by his grandmother, raised in secret, told that his mother was the danger, and somewhere out there he might still be alive. Lucia made another discovery. The tapes had background noise, a consistent hum. She cleaned it and cross-referenced it. It wasn't electrical. It was a sound unique to a water treatment plant, one that had a specific pump frequency. There were only 2 such plants in the state. One of them was in a small town called Brevard. James and Laura drove there without telling anyone. They went street by street. Then she saw him, working at a gas station, tall, black hair, same eyes, cleaning a window. She stepped out of the car. Her heart pounded. She didn't call his name. She just watched. And then he turned and saw her. He stared. Confused, frightened, then curious. Then something shifted in his face. Recognition, memory, or just a feeling? Laura stepped forward. "My name is Laura Beckett," she said. "I think I'm your mother." He didn't answer right away. Laura stood in the parking lot, her hands trembling, eyes locked onto the man wiping down a gas pump. He stared back, expression unreadable. For a second, less than a breath, the world felt suspended. Then Daniel said, "Sorry, ma'am." "I think you've got the wrong person." His voice, older, deeper, but still with that gentleness she remembered. "No," she said softly. "I don't." He didn't run, but he didn't come closer either. She took out the photo, the one from 2004, the one they'd found hidden behind the garage. She handed it to him. He looked at it. A muscle in his jaw twitched. "I don't remember this." "That's okay," she said. "I remember everything." A long silence. "I was told," he swallowed. "I was told my mother was dangerous." "I know. They said she left, that she hurt people, that she was unstable." Laura nodded. "They were wrong." They sat at a picnic table behind the station. James stayed in the car, watching from a distance. Laura told him about Emma, about the house, about his childhood. Daniel, or Samuel as he still called himself, listened without interruption. Then he said, "I used to dream about you, a woman in blue, holding my hand, but they told me dreams lie." "They don't," Laura said, tears in her eyes. He looked down. "I don't know what's real anymore." She reached into her purse and pulled out the drawing, the stick figure family, the one they found in the cabin. "Did you draw this?" He took it, stared at it, nodded slowly. "I remember this," he said. "I I remember being scared and wanting something else. She took a deep breath. You don't have to believe me right now. I just wanted you to know I never stopped looking. Emma arrived the next morning. She didn't say a word when she saw him. She just stared, then, quietly, "You look like Dad." Daniel smiled faintly. "I found some of his tapes," he said. "He used to record everything." Emma nodded. "He was afraid of losing us." "I think he already had," Daniel replied. They spent the day together. No cameras, no press, just them. Laura made peach cobbler. Emma brought old photos. Daniel, cautiously, shared pieces of his fragmented past. A foster home. A woman who called herself aunt but never hugged him. A trailer in Virginia. A school where he never made friends. A lifetime of silence. That night, he asked to hear one of the tapes. Laura played the one where Daniel was just 4, singing a song about dinosaurs in the car. His young voice echoed through the room. He smiled, but tears streamed down his face. "I don't remember singing that." "You were happy," Laura whispered. "Was I?" She placed her hand over his. "You were loved." Later, alone in the sunroom, Laura found the old photo box. She opened it one last time, and tucked inside, unnoticed until now, was a balloon. Faded, deflated, red. Daniel had drawn one on every picture he made as a child. She stepped outside and held it up to the sky. Emma came beside her. Then Daniel. They stood in silence as she let it go. It rose slowly, swaying in the breeze, climbing higher, until it vanished into the clouds. The sky in Asheville had always looked different in October. That thought returned to Laura 2 weeks later as she walked the trail near her home. Leaves crunched beneath her boots. The wind whispered through the trees. And for the first time in 2 decades, she wasn't walking alone. Daniel walked beside her. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. He hadn't moved back in, not yet. He still signed things as Samuel. He still winced when the word Mom was said aloud. But he came by every morning, drank coffee on the porch, listened to the wind. Asked quiet questions about himself. What was I like at bedtime? What was my favorite cereal? Did I cry a lot? Laura answered every question gently, sometimes with a laugh, sometimes through tears, and sometimes just by placing a hand on his shoulder. Emma helped too. She and Daniel had long walks. They joked about their father's stubbornness. They cried once when they found the broken frog mug at the back of a kitchen cabinet. And on one rainy Tuesday, Emma said, "You know, we're not broken, just..." Paused. "And maybe now we get to press play again." Laura spent one morning revisiting the photo albums, not to chase clues, just to remember. She turned each page slowly. Then she found one photo she hadn't seen in years. Daniel and Emma, sitting in the back seat of her, both asleep, their heads leaning on each other, her husband in the front seat, and in Laura's lap, barely visible, the corner of a book, Daniel's favorite one, the one she used to read every night. "Where the wild things are." She closed her eyes and remembered the last lines. That evening, Daniel stood at the threshold of the garage. He looked inside, at the bench, at the walls, at the shadows that once hid secrets. He turned to Laura. "I had a dream last night." "I was sitting in the sunroom, listening to music. You were humming something." Emma was outside. "I was small again?" He paused. "And I was happy." Laura swallowed hard. "That wasn't a dream." He looked at her. "Then what was it?" she said. Later, as the 3 of them stood on the porch watching the sun dip behind the hills, Emma turned to her mother and asked, "What will you do now?" Laura thought for a moment. "I think I'll live." She looked out at the sky. Inside, the photo of Daniel, the one with the red balloon, now sat on the mantel. Beside it, a new one. The 3 of them, taken just yesterday, laughing, real. And behind them, the oak tree, still standing, still remembering. The sky in Asheville looked different that day, lighter, as if it too had been holding its breath and could finally let go.